This is Budgeting 101 with Joni Kearn.
Good morning. My name is Joni Kearn. Today we are going to be talking about municipal bonds. It's a topic that the Senior Center here was interested in, and I think it's a great tool to use to earn a decent amount of interest on any investments that you have or any money that you have in savings. So we're just going to be going over the basics of what municipal bonds, or what they call munis, are all about. Munis are debt securities that come from states, municipalities, counties to finance projects that they're doing throughout the county, to finance like school projects, school additions, highways, bridges, all of those kinds of things. They are bought by people because they have favorable tax implications, and we're going to get into that a little bit. Most favorable is the fact that most people don't pay any interest. There aren't any federal taxes on muni bonds, so you don't have to pay any taxes on your interest federally. And as long as you live in the state where the muni bond is from, then you don't pay any local or state taxes on it either. So you actually are ahead of the game by a percentage or two, depending on how much money you have invested, because we pay taxes on our savings account interest, we pay taxes on our IRAs when we take them out. So this is a nice way to be able to put money away and not have to pay any taxes on it. They are very safe investments, which means that since, and I think I put it in here, since something like 1940 or 1950, there has never been a municipal bond that has failed, which means that as long as you stay in something that is not a high risk, you're not going to lose your money, which is important. You know, we've been through some tough times economically, and one of the things we're worried about when we invest money is, are we going to lose our money? Because we can't afford to do that. This gives us, yes?
Let's say a municipality went under, and maybe you've got a small village, they go bankrupt, dissolve, you'd be out your money then if you invest or not.
Yes, you would be.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you invest in muni bonds from cities that are. I wouldn't invest in a municipal bond from Detroit. Detroit is having a lot of fiscal trouble, so I would stay away from those.
What about Clintonville?
You have to take a look at it, and you have to take a look at the finances. There's several cities in California that have gone bankrupt, so you really need to take a look at it. Most cities in Wapaka, or most cities in Wisconsin, are very safe and they're fiscally sound. So there's two types of municipal bonds. The first type is a general obligation bond, or a GO. Those are the ones that are used for highways, bridges, infrastructure. They will use muni bonds to set up an industrial park for businesses to move into. And I know that the city of Wapaka has issued municipal bonds in the past, and this is what pays for those kinds of infrastructure improvements. The other one is revenue municipal bonds, and those are the bonds that are used for revenue producing activities. For example, a utility company. To build a utility company, they will issue municipal bonds. Utility companies plan on making a profit, so the profit is what pays back the utility company, or pays back the owners of the bonds. It's the same way with public transportation authorities. They have to be issued by government agencies or funds that act like a business. But remember, of the two types of municipal bonds, this is the one that holds just a little bit more risk, because it is the one that depends on the authority that issued the municipal bonds to be profitable. Okay, page 2. Most municipal bonds you would purchase through a broker. You can purchase individual municipal bonds. Sometimes you can purchase them directly by the authority. So sometimes you can purchase them directly from the city of Waupaca or the city of Clintonville or the utility company. Most municipal bonds are sold through brokers, and they are sold, lots of them are sold as bond structures. So what they have is a bond fund. So they dump all of these municipal bonds in together, and then you earn interest on the entire fund. It keeps your money a little bit more scattered throughout a bunch of different municipal bonds. It's seen as just a little bit safer if you're getting into a little higher risk bonds. But you're not going to make, if you want a bond that pays 7%, and there are bonds that pay 7%, then you would need to buy the individual bonds. So you can go see a broker even locally, and they can help you with purchasing a bond. You also can keep an eye out for cities, or you can call a city like Waupaca and you can say, are you issuing any municipal funds? Are they issued by the city? Is it something that I can purchase directly from you? The advantage to doing that is the savings. So you're not paying a broker to do the work for you. The tax-free interest, which we touched on a little bit before, is by far the most attractive thing about a municipal bond. They are used mainly to protect high-income people from having to pay taxes. So if you have a bunch of money in the bank, it is a great way to create revenue and to protect your money from having to pay taxes on it, or protect any other investment income you have from having to pay taxes. One of the things that I did, and I just have to share this with you because I liked the way it worked, is one of the classes that I took, we actually built a portfolio, false portfolio of municipal bonds. And we built it specifically to generate income. So we had X amount of money to play with in the beginning, and then we purchased bonds that the interest would be payable every single month, so that every month of the year, the municipal bonds would pay additional money. And that takes a huge amount of money. We put away $100,000 to do that. That takes a lot of money to be able to do that. But it's nice if you time them right. You could have your interest to pay your property taxes in December or January, your property taxes in the middle of summer. You could do it for something like Christmas shopping in December. You just have to time it as to when you want the extra money to come in. And then keep in mind that it's something that you would need to talk to your tax professional about, but it's something that the interest is, and it goes on your taxes, but it goes on there as exempt interest, so you're good with that. They have a relatively low risk, again, because they're issued by government agencies. The government, no matter how broke it is, never goes under. You always get your money. So unless you buy it directly from a municipality or a city that goes into bankruptcy, you're safe. Unless you buy it from a utility company that closes down and goes into bankruptcy, you're safe. So they are probably, other than savings accounts or money market accounts, any interest-bearing account from a bank, these are probably the safest investment tool there is. And here is 1970, 40, almost 47 years since there has been a default on any AAA rated municipal bonds, which is unheard of, by the way, in the investment industry. I also added some websites on the bottom so that you could move forward and do a little bit more reading about bonds. There's some terrific websites that cover the basics and the steps to investing in bonds. So it's a terrific way to add some knowledge if it's something that you want to continue. The last page that I did is actually, I get emails from a company called Henyon and Walsh. And it's just, I happened to get onto their website one day, and I was able to get updates on municipal bonds because they carry them, and it had an entire listing, and I just like to see how they're doing.
Oh, there it is. Okay, excuse me.
There you go.
The back.
I was going to blame Josh. He printed these for me. So you can see, if you're trying to read one of these, and I wanted to cover this just a little bit because I know that if you're looking at a table like this, most of it looks like Greek. So I wanted to go through these and explain to you a few of the things that are happening with that. If we look at the first one on the top, it's the Public Finance Authority for Wisconsin Education. And if you move across, it says coupon on the top, C-O-U-P is what it says. And that right under that, it says 7%, which means that this particular municipal bond is paying 7% interest. Are we making 7% anywhere else? No, we aren't. So that pays terrific interest. It shows you the maturity date. Anytime a municipal bond is created and put out for sale, there's always a maturity date. On that maturity date or before, if they're called, which means a company will contact you and say, I'm going to buy them back, and sometimes you have a choice and sometimes you don't when they call the bond. This bond, if you bought it in the beginning, would have paid you 7% interest until August 1st of 2043.
Can you get it out sooner, or do you always have to wait till that date?
You can sell them on the market, so you can sell them to anybody else that's looking for a municipal bond, like an investment, so you can get out. Pardon me?
How do you find that out?
That one you would have to put up for sale. If you buy it directly from a municipality, they're going to be a little tougher to sell. But you could go, let's say you bought one from the city of Waupaca. You could go back to the city of Waupaca and say, has anybody let you know, do you have a waiting list of people that would like to buy the bond? Because they can, hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
If they know of people, or people come in and ask, they can say, we have someone who owns one that would like to sell it. They're a little bit tougher to sell. If you buy one from a stockbroker, they're easier to sell because part of what you pay the stockbroker for is to handle your money for you. Okay, so the smaller the municipality, the harder they are to sell. The higher the interest rate on the bond, a 7% would be pretty easy to sell relatively, just because it's such a great interest rate. Okay, so the next two columns talk about what the purchase price is going for. Okay, so what they're saying is, and the first one is yield to worst. So what they're saying is that the worst case, if they call them in, is that you would make 6% interest on the bond. The next one says 105.098. What that means is how much they're selling for in the market today. So to make 7% interest, people are more willing to purchase a bond for higher than asking. So for example, if you are purchasing a $1,000 bond, you are going to pay $1,051 for that bond. So you're going to pay at the 105.98, you're going to pay 5% over the cost of the bond, which is not a big deal, because if you're talking about $51, you are going to have that made back. Your first year of interest is going to be $70. So every year thereafter, your entire interest rate is free and clear to you. Does that make sense? So the better the bond and the more attractive the bond, the higher above par people are willing to spend in order to get it. And then you see that it's in the state of Wisconsin. You see that there's 15 of them. And then there's just some call information toward the end that doesn't have a whole lot. I mean, brokers do that a lot, but the things that we would want to watch as consumers if we're looking at purchasing a bond is we would want to look at the price, and we would want to look at how much interest it's paying us, because if we have a $1,000 bond, then we know that at some point in time, and most bonds pay interest twice a year, so they pay interest every 6 months. So a $1,000 bond would pay you $35 interest-free income every 6 months. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but if they're added up, I mean, if you had $10,000 that you could put into bonds, you're talking about $350 in interest every 6 months. And it's money if you're putting it away because it isn't necessary money to live on every day, which is where investment income is, then this makes a great way to put the money away because of the tax freedom, not having to pay taxes on it, and because of the semi-annual interest that you'll make. And then it goes down the entire list. Now, we have, if you look down further, if you look down at, there's 1,000, there's a number there, 1,005. And it's the Wisconsin State General Fund. It pays 5.75 interest. People are paying 110.5% to purchase them. So they're paying 10% over par value of the bond, which are always in $1,000 increments. Some of them are $1,000, some are $5,000, some are $10,000. But people really want this bond, which means that it's probably a whole lot safer. It's going to be safer. It's not as high a risk, but you're going to be paying a little bit more for the bond up front. And as you can see, if you compare that interest rate to the one on the top, you'll be making more money from the one at the top. Does that all make sense? You also can take a look at the interest rate, and you can tell some of the risk from that. If you find a bond that's paying 10 or 12%, it's a pretty high risk bond. So it's something that you're going to want to look into and make sure that it's going to serve you well. You also, as I talked about a little bit before, ratings go from AAA to AA to A to B to C to junk, and the lower you get, AAA is the absolute best. So if you get down into the B minuses, C or D, those are junk bonds, and they're very high risk. They pay very good interest if you can keep the value of the money there. So you want to take a look at purchasing. That's one of the things that you absolutely want to take a look at, is what the bond is rated at. In the municipal bond market, I would have a hard time personally wanting to go with anything less than a AAA rated, because I'm putting the money away for a long term, which means that I want to make sure that it stays safe. Any questions? I went through that really, really quickly. Bonds are, when it comes to municipal bonds, they're not particularly complicated to work with or to own. You need to just understand the basics and know kind of where you're going with it. If you're already working with a stockbroker, that's a nice place to start. But again, you can buy them individually. Some municipalities sell them individually, so you can talk to them as well.
What is this settled date about? Last column, 2/16.
those are the dates that the interest is paid out. I'm almost positive. So it would pay out on February, and then it would pay out again in August. And those are that goes by the date that the bond was issued. So if the bond was issued in January, it'll pay out in July and January. Okay? Any other questions?
What is it? Something about quantity there. Is that how many they've got to sell? First one's got 15 on it, and below 25.
That's the bid and the offer minimum. So it was, and I'm not 100% sure of that. So I don't know if that's how many $1,000 quantities you have to purchase or how many they have left or what people are offering. It's the offer minimum. So I'm not 100% sure of that. I did some research with this for you guys. I didn't do a ton of it. Anything else? They're a nice investment to have. They are a great way, as I said, they're a great way to put money long-term aside. It's something, if you are willing, children or grandchildren or whoever, if you are putting money, bonds are a great way to do that as well, because it's a great way to give whoever inherits them some tax-free income, as well as instead of just giving them a lump sum of money. So that is a plus. And that we're talking about wills next month, so that's not a bad thing to incorporate if you're giving away lump sums of money, especially to people that you are concerned that would just spend it all. That is a way. They would have to sell the bond, and they certainly can, but they could also hang on to it for long-term interest, which is not a bad deal.
Which is a present from Grandma.
Absolutely, I would.
It's a year.
I wouldn't.
Wonderful.
I wouldn't mind inheriting a bond and having, $300 and this nice little bonus check twice a year. That wouldn't bother me a bit. That would be kind of nice. That's my car insurance twice a year, or however I want to use it. So it makes for a nice gift. So if there aren't any questions, if there aren't any other questions, we're just going to close this up. Remember, we're talking about wills next month. So I will be back, and we usually have a huge crowd here talking about wills and making sure that you're all taken care of for your future. So I will see you all then.